The 25th Hour Radio Show.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in today to the 25th Hour Radio Show here on Monster Radio AM 1150. I am your host, Rob Fairless. On the phone with me today is world-renowned referee and International Boxing Hall of Fame member Joe Cortez. Joe, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me on the show.
It is a pleasure talking to you, my friend, and to the fans listening out there.
Joe, I guess the logical place to start here would be to go back to your beginnings. When you first started to get involved with the sport of boxing, can you take us back and give us all a little history lesson on how you first became interested in boxing and what inspired you to take the sport up yourself?
Well, there's a fighter by the name of Gaspar Indian Ortega, who was a Mexican fighter from Tijuana, Baja California, and he moved to New York, to Manhattan, in Spanish Harlem, where I was born and raised. And Gaspar Ortega took me under his wing when I was 12 years old with my brother Mike. And he didn't speak English, so I was able to help him translate when he came to New York along with his brother Felix. So that's how it all started. And before you know it, my brother Mike got started in boxing first with the Boys Club of New York. I followed him shortly thereafter, and we both became Golden Glove champions in the sub-novice division in 1960. My brother was a 126-pounder, and myself as a 112-pounder, sub-novice division. Then we went up to win the Spanish Golden Glove Championship that same year in the open division. And then the following year, we became champions once again in the open division in New York City Golden Gloves. These fights were held in Madison Square Garden, at the old Madison Square Garden. And we both won the open division championships. And we took also again that same year, the Spanish Golden Glove Championships. Then we went on to fight for the Eastern Golden Glove tournament, and it was also held in Madison Square Garden. My brother Mike and I both took the Eastern Golden Glove Championships. In the semifinals and finals, my brother and I scored 3 knockouts. I stopped my opponent in the first round, and in the semifinals, then in the finals that night, I knocked out my second opponent. My brother won the championship of the world with a decision over Oswald Dobbins. And we went on there to settle to Bear Mountain for a couple of weeks training, preparing us for the National Golden Glove Championships, which was called the Intercity Golden Glove Championships. The Chicago team represented the West Coast. The New York team represented the East Coast. My brother Mike and I both went to Chicago, and we were fortunate enough to both become the first girls ever to win the National Golden Glove Championships the same night in 2 different weight classes. We were not alternate. We won everything straight through. We were undefeated, taking the New York, the Easterns, and the Nationals. Then the same year, I won again the Spanish Golden Glove Championships. I won a total of 6 Golden Glove Championships. My brother won a total of 5. And then when I was 18, I was convinced to turn pro along with my brother Mike. I had a short career. I only had 19 professional fights. BoxRec has me down for, I think, 12. There were other fights that I had in Mexico while I was traveling with Gaspar Ortega. And I would come up with an 18-1 record as a professional. And I lost interest, but I saw there was opportunities of me going anywhere. As I was fighting out of coming from New York, going to California to have my first pro fight, a 4-rounder, the Gaspar Ortega's main event. Then he took me to Hawaii and Mexico. Then I went into the military when I lost my first pro fight. And then while I was in the military, I was able to get away on some weekends and still compete professionally. And they made me a boxing coach on the boxing team down in Fort Hood, Texas. And then I came back, continued my career, and lost interest. I got married. I was 21. Then by the time I was 23, I had 2 kids. I had to get myself a real job. And I ended up in hotel management. Well, boxing was good for me. And during my years as hotel management out in Puerto Rico, I moved there after I got married 4 years later. We moved to Puerto Rico. Was there for 8 years. And while I was there, I got the bug again to fight again. So I had one more pro fight. I won, but it didn't have the same spark that I had when I was first starting out. So I decided to pack it in again. Continued hotel management. Was very successful at that. I worked in hotel management for 15 years with the El San Juan Hotel Corporation. 8 in Puerto Rico, 7 out of our sales office in New York City, Madison Avenue apartment building. So I met a gentleman by the name of Pat Masher. He used to referee my fights at the amateurs while I was managing at the El Kitchen Hotel. And he's the one that planted the city in my head about becoming a referee. So in 1976, December, I moved back to New York. February, I was already working the amateur fights in the Police Athletic League. And that same year, after completing my Golden Glove tournament, they saw me referee some fights in Madison Square Garden, 2 championship fights. 6 months into my refereeing, the New York Health Athletic Commission approached me and asked me to turn pro. I said, I don't think I'm ready for that. I said, you showed us enough skills doing these Golden Glove tournaments. We would like to have you on the team and as part of our staff of the officials. And that was the beginning of my boxing career. And then I became a referee in New Jersey and became a WGGH official. So I would then started to do championship fights. So refereeing started in 1977. In 1982, I did my first world championship fight, Aaron Pryor against Big Ed Montilla. And my dream was to do just one championship fight. And when it was all over, I refereed close to 180 world championship fights and inducted into the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame, the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, the World Boxing Hall of Fame, and then the big one was the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, New York. I got inducted with Mike Tyson, Julio Chavez, Casazu, Sylvester Stallone, Nashua Bernstein, the trainer, and myself. The 6 of us got inducted in 2011. I told my wife, you know what, I'm 34 years into boxing as a referee. I'm still active. I want to go out on top. So 2012, a year after I got inducted, I decided to pack it in with Canelo Alvarez, Joselito Lopez fight here in Las Vegas. And then I was hired by ESPN, where I am presently a boxing analyst with ESPN for the last 2.5 years. And we're talking about doing other bigger things with ESPN for 2017 and 18. So that's where we are right now.
So, man, I'm curious to know, being someone who has been both fighter and a referee, which one carried the most weight on your shoulders to perform the best, being all eyes were on you on both sides of the coin?
Well, they're both very important. I mean, you want to be a fighter, you don't want to get hurt, and you don't want to hurt your opponent, but you want to beat him. So it's kind of difficult. You have to, and as a referee, you got to have some passion for fighters. You have to make sure you're making the right calls so you can be on the right track. And most of the time, and no referee is a perfect referee. Depending on what side of the ring we're at, if we're on the blind side, we may miss something. Crazy things can happen in the ring. And sometimes you have to disqualify a fighter. Sometimes you have to stop a fighter, but he thinks he can continue. But the job of a referee, first and foremost, is safety of the fighter, enforcing the rules, and making sure they can come back another day.
So when someone mentions the name Joe Cortez, anyone who remotely is involved with the sport hears the words, "I'm fair but firm," somewhere in the back of their head, which since has become a registered trademark. How did you come up with that catchphrase, and did you ever expect it to follow you like it has throughout your career?
Well, I was doing an interview one day in New York, and I was listening to the interview after I got home, and I said, wow. I said to the gentleman, he said, Joe, what does it take to be a good referee? I said, well, you have to be, a fair referee, but by the same token, you have to be firm. You have to take control. But being fair meaning that you have to just do your job and be neutral, being fair, and giving them a little opportunity sometimes they do something, you give a little light warning. So you're being fair, but then when they start doing something wrong, then you got to be firm. Then you got to start taking action, maybe taking points or disqualify the fighter. So that's why I came up with the fair but firm. I was fair, but I'm firm.
So just because you have retired as a referee doesn't mean you have retired from the sport of boxing. As you mentioned earlier, you're working now with ESPN as a boxing analyst. What's it like working behind the scenes now and having the opportunity to give predictions on fights as opposed to when you were a referee and had to remain impartial?
Well, it's still a little difficult for me because there was always that line. I didn't want to cross that line as a referee. But now I have to be a little bit more open and what I try to do now is trying to educate the fans and try to train with the help of the referees and be the mouthpiece for some of the referees. The referees, unfortunately, don't get paid that much money as for their duties or a judge. And I know when Kenny Bayless was referee the Manny Pacquiao Mayweather fight, it was a mega fight. And I spoke on behalf of the referees by just bringing out of what I thought a referee should get paid for that particular fight. And I was going low numbers, but I throw numbers out there. People say, "What? That's all you guys get paid?" Well, we used to get paid. I remember back in the days, Arthur McCanty, Tony Perez, they referees back in the days, Zach Clayton, they used to get paid $500 to referee Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier fight. And all the fans would say, "What? That's all you got paid?" That's what they got paid back then. Then about maybe 25 years ago, we had a meeting at the WBC convention, and we got a group together. I started talking about we have to bring up and talk to the president about the officials getting paid a better rates, better fees. So they decided to come up with a scale rate where if the purse was over $1 million, and the referee would get so much. But then it went up. They said the most a referee can get will be up to $10,000 for a fight, a mega fight. So you have a sliding scale that can fluctuate between, 3,000 to 10,000. But hardly no one ever got 10,000 because Nevada was the only place where the mega fights were always held, and Nevada always used their own referees. They didn't bring outside referees. They would bring outside judges, but the referee was always a referee that was a resident. You have to be a resident in the state of Nevada. So anyway, I just felt that by talking on behalf of the referees, I think that a referee for Manny Pacquiao Mayweather fight should get at least $25,000, and the judges should get at least $20,000. Well, these are things that they hardly ever speak about, but now that you ask the question, yes, I feel that referees are still underpaid considering the monies that are involved in these mega fights. So Kenny Bayless got his $25,000, the judges got $20,000, and if I just speak on behalf of the referees, they're afraid if they speak up, they're going to get blackballed. Yeah. They're not going to give them assignments. But I think it's just somebody has to speak up, and I think that I'm the right person for that because I'm already retired. I've been in that position. I always thought we were underpaid, but I also understand what the promoters are just starting out, and you have to give them a break because they have big expenses to put on the show. But when you get shows that promoters are very well established, and you got all the pay-per-view and the Showtime and HBO, all the networks out there, well, I think there's more money in today. So I think they were falling behind and not, increasing the fees for the officials. And now they have, and we have to continue working that, so making sure that at least we set a precedent by having Kenny Bayless receive $25,000 for that one fight. And now they know in the future, any mega fights, you got to up the scale for the officials. They always say they want good officials. You want the best, well, pay up the money for that. That's all I can say.
Yeah, if you want the best, you gotta pay for the best. Exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
Joe, one of the coolest things about what you have going on right now with ESPN is your home gym studio, which is surrounded by tons of boxing memorabilia from your career. When did you first start putting that together? Building it. Was it recent, or has that been a project you've been working on for a while now?
when I moved into the home that I'm in right now, I've been here for going on 15 years. The first year when I moved into the house, I told my wife, we have an area here that's part of this house, which is on the south side of the house. I said, I felt that there's a big, huge garage. It was like a big, one of the biggest garages you can see, where you could put it like a mobile home or a mobile bus. I mean, it was huge. So then we decided that, I'm not going to use those garages there. We have 4 other garages on the other side of the house. So you know what? I want to convert this into a boxing facility, only for my personal use, so I can have a boxing ring. I can practice my ring mechanics and also help the local referees here. So I put a 17 by 17 boxing ring in there, and it's 3 feet above the ground. And I put 2 heavy bags and a speed bag so I can work out, keep myself in good physical condition. And I would practice my ring mechanics in that ring. I love to put on my music. It was like dancing, moving around that ring.
Uh-huh.
And people say, Joe, how do you keep yourself so sharp? You're always on your toes. You move around so well in the ring. Well, I love the sport of boxing. I want to be a student of the sport. And I love helping my colleagues to become better officials. But I was also planning the day when I retire, I want to use that gym as a facility where I can either give seminars or whatever. And I even put a balcony in that gym where I can look down from the top, looking down into the ring. I have a 4-hole putting ring up on that balcony up there. It's really a unique gym, one of the best you will ever want to find any place in the world. And I have it here. No fighters come here to train. It's only for referees. And now that I'm with ESPN, I'm able to use that facility for my predictions, my topics. I'll bring some guests on to talk for ESPN. We use it out of my facility here, which is something that I had planned for years ago. I told my wife, I'm going to be refereeing forever. I said, so when I pack it in, I want to have a place where I can still continue to be in the sport. But I never thought that it would get to this level, what I'm doing with ESPN now. It's a great honor to be working with ESPN. I try to help my colleagues, my officials. All the officials, we have Kenny Bayless, 20 weeks, Russell Mora, Jay Nady, Robert Bird, referees here in Las Vegas, and Big Dracula from Reno. Those are the 6 referees we have here in Las Vegas. And we started to bring in some new referees from out of state. Benji Esteves is one of them. He's a top-notch referee, well-renowned referee who does a great job in the ring. And we have Mark Nelson, another referee. And we have other referees that they bring it into Nevada on and off. But Benji Esteves is one of the referees that are looking to make the move to be a permanent resident in Nevada, which is what Nevada wants. So, because of, you have to get ready for the future. Referees are not going to be around forever, so you got a couple of referees that are about ready in the next couple of years to be retiring. So we got to have the younger referees come in and fill in the gap. When I retired 4 years ago, they have not replaced me, but I recommended that they start recruiting younger talent out there. I recommended a few, and they have been using them. So I think boxing is where we're supposed to be as far as officials. That's when I decided I could pack it in, because I know we had a good stable of referees. And I said, okay, now I can sit back and enjoy boxing, knowing that it's in good hands with great officials. Kenny Bayless, 20 weeks, Russell Mora, Benji Esteves, Big Dracula, Robert Bird, and Jay Nady. And they do all do a good job. You can be very confident with any of those referees are working the fight. You have the executive director, Bobby Bennett, who's a former FBI agent, and he's been the executive director for about 2.5 years. He's doing a hell of a job, much better than what I ever thought he would be. He's one of my proteges from the past as well, from the amateurs. I got him in the amateurs, and now he's the executive director of the Nevada Commission. Was a professional boxing judge for 2 years. So Bobby Bennett gets the right man for the right position.
So you've been a fighter, you've been a referee, an analyst, and I'm going to throw one more in the mix, an actor. What was your experiences like working on films like I Spy with Eddie Murphy, Play It to the Bone with Antonio Banderas, Woody Harrelson, Undisputed, Wesley Snipes, and of course, probably the most iconic boxing movie series of all time, and in the film Rocky Balboa, also known as Rocky Six, with Sylvester and Antonio Tarver. Was being Joe Cortez, the actor, an easy transition for you, or were you ever hesitant about taking on that challenge?
Well, I thought it was exciting. I thought it was a great opportunity. I was honored when I was chosen to take part in those roles as a referee, and they wanted to look authentic, so I helped them, especially Sylvester Stallone with the Rocky movie. He said, "Joe, I want to make it look as authentic as possible. See how you can help me with that." And I was able to recruit 23 individuals, the majority of them active boxing personalities, whether it was judges, referees, timekeepers, ringside doctors, commissioners, cornermen, and all that. I helped them get all those individuals and made it look authentic. It was like the real thing. They were able to hire individuals from HBO like Jim Lampley, Larry Merchant, and a few other individuals, Max Kellerman. They were part of that movie. So it looked like it was a real thing where you had the fight going on. It took us 6 days to do the boxing film, the boxing scene, and it was very hectic. It was 12 to 14, 15-hour days working. You have to be at the set at the hotel, we're at the MGM, I believe it was the MGM Hotel. And it was exciting. Eddie Murphy was another great guy to work with, a good friend. And we filmed his movie, I Spy, up in the boxing scene. We filmed it up in Vancouver. And then, of course, the Antonio Banderas, Woody Harrelson. We filmed out here in Vegas as well. And Wesley Snipes, Undisputed, we did that here in Vegas. So it was not difficult for me because I didn't have a script other than just give the instructions to the fighters and to move around the ring like I normally did doing a fight. Wherever they moved, I know where I had to be because that was my job. So I made it easy for them. They didn't know what to tell me how to do it because they never performed duties of a referee. But I would tell them, all right, let your fighters, Sylvester Stallone, Antonio Tarver, whichever way they're boxing, I'm going to move in, I'm going to make my moves, I'm going to make my calls, I want to make it look authentic. And I remember there were some scenes in there where I had to physically get involved and pull Sylvester Stallone off on Antonio Tarver when the bell is ringing, they're in the corner. And I grabbed Sylvester and I pushed him over. I grabbed him from behind. I spun him around. He didn't know what the hell was going on. But he said, "Wow, man, Joe, you got some strength, man." But I said, "This is what I do in boxing. But I got to throw punches at the bell ringing. I got to physically get in there and take them apart." But we had so much fun doing that. And I would sit down and we would look at the replay afterwards of the scenes that we had just done, completed, and we would say, "Nah, I don't look that good. Let's do it again." And so we got it. We were all satisfied. And then they did the editing and they put it together. So it was really a lot of fun for me. It was an honor being involved as a referee and taking part as an actor. I never thought in my wildest dream I'd be at that level, but you know what? God knows what he's doing. I've been doing the right thing. He takes care of me too, so I want to help my colleagues out there to become better officials. I want the fans to enjoy boxing and try to do the best we can. We're not perfect, but we try to do the best we can.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like you're slowing down at all, Joe. It seems like you're finding ways to stay busy and get the most enjoyment out of life that you can possibly get. Is there anything else on the horizon you're going to take a crack at that your fans might be interested in? Any projects or anything else you would like to mention before we start to wrap things up here?
Yeah, we're doing. I just came back from D.C. About 3-4 days ago. I signed a contract for a game. It's called People's Champion. It's a boxing game. It's an application, and they hope to get that out there by the beginning of the year. And I'll be the referee in the segments of the boxing game, and the people who will be purchasing these applications will be able to participate as a fighter themselves in this game, People's Champion. So I'm the referee in that video, and we intend to do 1 or 2 every year for the next 5 years. So it's something new, something I enjoy doing, and let's see what comes out of that. It's going to be very, very exciting. It's something it's a perfect timing with social media, with everything going on the internet. All these games are really hot. People love them. They're like when they go on these games with Xbox and play all these different games. It'll be something similar to that, but it'll be on your mobile devices. So it'll be interesting. And I've also worked the corner of Sean Porter, a former world champion. I worked his corner when he fought Keith Thurman. So there's some interest in me working with some fighters, helping them out, making sure that the officials follow their duties the way they're supposed to in the ring. And being an ex-fighter, I've had good trainers throughout my careers. Freddie Brown was one of them. He also trained Roberto Duran for a period. Roberto Duran had a couple of trainers. Freddie Brown was one of them. As you saw the movie, his Hands of Stone. Ray Alsol was a trainer as well. But Freddie Brown trained Roberto Duran, and I was fortunate enough to have Freddie Brown train me. And so I like working the corners, helping the fighters out, giving them good pointers, good advice, just to make sure that their fights are handled the right way and that the trainers understand that I'm there to help protect the fighters, but also by the same token, have them use better skills to make sure that they can come back another day.
And I do want to mention Joe has his own website, fairbutfirm.com, where you can go and get all types of information about Joe and his career. And before we bring this interview to a close, I have one final question for you, Joe, and it's kind of a trivia question. Who was the last person to knock out two guys in the same night at Madison Square Garden?
Well, I can tell you that there was a guy, he was a youngster. He was kind of young. He was about 17 years old in Madison Square Garden. His brother Mike won by a knockout that night, and yours respectively, Joe Cortez, knocked out two opponents the same night in Madison Square Garden. That was for the Eastern Golden Glove Championships in New York City.
Now, do you still see that in this day and age, two fights in one night? Do they still do that?
I think they may have some amateur tournaments, but not really, because they want more safety in boxing. They're more stringent when it comes to fighters participating in more than one contest or one night. But that was a great experience for me. But we always take up the safety first. We want to make sure the fighters don't get hurt, especially the amateurs. So they try to kind of give a couple of days in between fights.
Well, Joe, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me on the show. It's been my pleasure, sir.
Well, it's my pleasure, and the fans out there listening, you go to my website, fairbutfirm.com, or just go to joecortez.com. It takes you right to that Fair But Firm website. In case you forget Fair But Firm, you can't forget Joe Cortez, unless you don't like me as a referee.
Well, thanks for being on my show, Joe. You take care.
All right. Take care, buddy. God bless.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.